Beep, 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 beep. Morning, welcome, afternoon, evening. I always say that because I don't know what time of day it is or what day it is. It's mad, isn't it? As you can see, the jester today is sporting aubergine and some kind of purple. The ermine robes of majesty. Good morning. Let's get straight into it. You know when you get a couple of things come along and you think, they're both interesting actually, and they're probably connected. So we've got a link to the original post for what I'm going to talk about, and then a link to a Substack, and obviously the links to this video and everything else on the Substack. Now, what connects, I ask thee, what connects trigger warnings with 15-minute cities? Now, for those of you that haven't heard of the concept of 15-minute cities, it's where you can wander about and get everything in 15 minutes. It's a profoundly communist idea, and they're happily doing it in various councils, and people are, lifting the bollards up and ambulances can't get around. It's all part of this mad nuttery that we're seeing that's coming from the UNESCO goals. But let's move on. I want to talk to you about something called the Universe 25 experiment, which I got from a Facebook post and I think is well worth a read. That's interesting. I've just had a message from a young man who didn't know what's been going on at the Tavistock. I should be seeing him later, I imagine. Right, okay, so moving on. The Universe 25 experiment is one of the most terrifying experiments in the history of science, which, through the behaviour of a colony of mice, which always reminds me of Bagpuss. We will fix it! Right, Bagpuss. With a colony of mice, right, is an attempt by scientists to explain human societies. The idea of Universe 25 came from the American scientist John Calhoun, who created an ideal world in which hundreds of mice would live and reproduce, right? Okay. More specifically, Calhoun built the so-called paradise of mice. That's got a nice alliteration, paradise of mice. A specially designed space where rodents had abundance of food and water as well as a large living space. In the beginning, he placed 4 pairs of mice that in a short time began to reproduce. Mice have a tendency to do that if you give them lots of food and somewhere to live, right? This resulted in rapid population growth. However, after 315 days, their reproduction began to decrease significantly. When the number of rodents reached 600, a hierarchy was formed. Between them and then the so-called wretches appeared. Wretches, good word, wretches. The wretched people. The larger rodents began to attack the group, and the result that many males began to collapse psychologically. As a result, the females did not protect themselves and in turn became aggressive towards their young. As time went on, the females showed more and more aggressive behaviour, isolation elements, and lack of reproductive mood. There was a low birth rate and at the same time an increase in mortality in younger rodents. Then a new class of male rodent appeared, the so-called beautiful mice. They refused to mate with the females or to fight for their space. All they cared about was food and sleep. At one point, beautiful males and isolated females made up the majority of the population. See where this is going? According to Calhoun, the death phase consisted of 2 stages. The first death and second death. The former was characterized by the loss of purpose in life beyond mere existence. No desire to mate, raise young, or establish a role within society. As time went on, juvenile mortality reached 100% and reproduction reached 0. Among the endangered mice, homosexuality was observed. And at the same time, cannibalism increased despite the fact that there was plenty of food. Isn't nature weird, right? 2 years after the start of the experiment, the last baby of the colony was born. By 1973, he had killed the last mouse in the Universe 25. John Calhoun repeated the same experiment 25 more times, and each time the result was the same. Animals, eh? Funny things, aren't we? Calhoun's scientific work has been used as a model for interpreting social collapse, and his research serves as a focal point for the study of urban sociology, which is where it fits into this idea of these 15-minute cities. We are currently witnessing direct parallels in today's society. Here we go. Weak, feminized men with little to no skills and no protection instincts, and overly agitated and aggressive masculine females with no maternal instincts. It's time to get a grip on this reality before more damage is done. I thought that was interesting, so I thought that I'd share it with you. If it's right, give it some thought, because I've had a mull over the night, give it some thought. If it's right, we've got a problem. It may be partially right, it may not be right at all, but have a think about it, and if you want to know how we've ended up with weak feminized men with little to no skills and no protection instincts, and overly agitated and aggressive masculine females with no maternal instincts, you need look no further, quite frankly, than the marketing industry, the PR industry, the education and psychology. Because it's the crap we've been pushing for God knows how long, isn't it? This behaviourist nonsense from the big parent that's looking after us all. You know, the toxic parent in all its horrible, gory glory. Right, so that caught my attention. I was like, yes, one finds this somewhat interesting. You know? So it's all about this, advertising. I think that has loads to do with it, feminising men and, all that sort of stuff, which is, we know has happened. They sell, here's this bum cream. If you wipe this on your backside, you never smell like an ape again. Or, you need this smooth skin. You can blame it on whatever you like, and it's worth having to think about it, isn't it? Right? Okay? Which then led me to something else that came across my desk, which I think is related. But the question is, what relates this to that? And here we go. Trigger warnings, all the links are in the doobers, by the way. Trigger warnings on university texts make students think they are frail. You think? It looks like the smartest people on the planet are catching up. For fuck's sake. The introduction of trigger warnings on university texts is teaching students to become fragile and childlike, a former university administrator has claimed. Speaking to the Times, Linda Murdoch suggested that undergraduates were being infantilized by suggestions that they need to be protected from ideas that might upset them. I wrote an article about this in 2020. This is the one I'm putting on Substack. It's just a repost, right? The former Director of Careers at the University of Glasgow has outlined her position in an essay submitted to the Scottish Union for Education. The organisation, whose slogan is Education Not Indoctrination, is chaired by Dr. Stuart Wayton, a sociology and criminology lecturer at Abertay University, who has stood as a candidate for Nigel Farage's Brexit party. That'll be most people go, I'm not listening to him then if he's part of Farage's crowd. Given the proliferation of reports about the fragility of university students, you might be forgiven for thinking that higher education is deeply harmful, Murdoch wrote. Or alternatively, you might be forgiven thinking that those that describe young people as frail, flaky, or snowflakes have a point. Do you think? It's almost every day a university announces trigger warnings, cautioning students about course material or a student group demands a safe space away from hurtful ideas. She claimed that issues such as stress over meeting essay deadlines, right, or it was ever thus, or exam anxiety were now seen as threats to a student's mental health. You think they're being overparented? Possibly. A threat to students' mental health, rather than their emotional reactions. Given that students today have been taught to fear their thoughts and feelings, it is this, together with the pathologization of their everyday emotions and the promotion of risks and campaigns in help-seeking behaviour, that have led to more of them reporting themselves to be emotionally fragile. Tossers. Lindy Patterson, Professor Emeritus of Education Policy at the University of Education, said that he recognised the concerns Murdoch raised. The attention to feelings rather than cognitive development is harmful to worthwhile learning, he said. However, I'm not pessimistic, as students are robust. What if they're robust? Why do they need a trigger warning? What is wrong with these people, right? I thought Edinburgh was waking up. They sort of are, I think. With firm rules in place about... Right. However, I'm not pessimistic as students are robust, okay? With firm rules in place about politeness and the need for evidence. Firm rules in place about politeness and need for evidence. Oh, just get in the bin, you weakening ninny. Even the most controversial topics can be raised in classes where there are radically different points of view. The problem is mainly not students, but the university managers who treat students as children. Now, that's interesting, that, isn't it? So, that came from Lindsay Patterson, Professor Emeritus of Education Policy, is saying, it isn't me, it's the administrators. I'm not responsible for the education, says Lindsay Patterson, Professor Emeritus of Education Policy. It's not my fault that students are all weak and sort of, like a half erect knob. It's not my fault. The problem is mainly not students, but the university managers who treat students as children. Now, this Professor Emeritus may well be right about that fact, and I imagine that he is, and good luck to him. The problem we've got is that what he's talking about there in that article is exactly the same. Exactly the same. as 15-minute cities. The problem that we have in this country is overparenting. Our representatives are using their power in ways they should never be allowed to use them. We need smaller governments. We need smaller councils. We need to slash the public sector as soon as possible. That's going to stick in some people's craws. Because it is now out of control. The NHS, to all intents and purposes, is a communist state in its own right, with its own rules, its own regulations, that feels that can run roughshod over what the government say, what the people say. That's us, right? Cut it to the bone, I say. Let's get the administrators out of there. Let's get the bureaucracy out of there. Let's streamline it down so that they're not doctors and nurses and those that are the ancillary workers who keep the bloody beast going could do their damn job. I speak to doctors and nurses all the time. They can tell me what the problems are. Get rid of him, we'll be all right. It'll be one or two busybodies in each department. Same as we've got here. Busybodies, right? 15-minute cities, driven by the UNESCO sustainable goals. We need to do a number of things now, I think, and it's fairly obvious from this stuff that we do. This overparenting, which is what it is across the board, is a direct result of our involvement in European projects that are by nature authoritarian and communist. Or I could just be another next tin hat nutter. I might be. I may be a tin hat nutter. Anyway, buy me a coffee. Come and be a warrior teacher, though. Nice few inquiries in. I'm going to start sending out the invites to the meeting in the next couple of days. So come and be a warrior teacher. Come and join us. We're having great fun. I mean, we learn loads of stuff, but at the same time we have a good time, and it means you can collaborate with people who are in vastly different situations to you, but are coming together to defeat the same monster. Come and join us. Other than that, please do buy me a coffee. I've got a studio to build soon. I found myself a GC handywoman who I hope is going to help me. I'll see you later, folks. All right, have a great time. Bye.